Yeah, I think diversity is super important because here's what I say is I don't want to ever work at a place or go to school at a place where there are people that I can't look up to, right?
Mhm.
I don't admire, the work. I don't feel like I respect or not respect because I respect everybody, but I don't aspire to be where I see people who are ahead of me are, right? So I think diversity is important for a couple of reasons. One is innovation and having a more intellectual conversation. I think two is about representation and how representation plays a great role in retention and recognition. When I chose Oracle as a company, I chose it for a particular number of reasons. One was I thought that I was only going to I was going to be the BME in the midst of CS students. It didn't turn out that way, but BME in the midst of CS students, so I'm like, okay, great. I'm just going to be learning a lot from everybody. And I did learn a lot from people, but it turned out that everybody kind of also came from somewhere. There were people who were like CS majors, some people who were data science majors, people who were cognitive science. I had a friend who did history in undergrad, ran a limousine company, then did a coding boot camp. So before joining Oracle. Also, I used to look like I'm like, okay, where are your employee resource groups? So these are sort of like your clubs. Is the employee resource group active? What have you all done recently? Just tell me. I want to meet where my Black people at, where my gay people at. Again, like I said, like when you join corporate for the first time coming out of college, you're really doing a lot of the learning on the job. So you need mentors who are going to be able to see you and be like, okay, I want to give my time to this person. And I find that it's a lot much easier. People are generally open, but it's a lot much easier for people to sort of have that mentor mentee relationship when they maybe get where you're coming from, right? So background wise and otherwise.
Yeah, but there's multiple things. As a woman, it's completely different. Um, as a young engineer, it's completely different. I would say my age and my gender have impacted me more than my race, which has been very surprising because there's not like there's a bunch of Black engineers at the districts. But a lot of the, especially where I work, and it varies, but in the consultants I work with, the people are so much older than me. I'm working with people who can be my parent, in some cases could be my grandparent. And so how can you be taken seriously? And then as a woman especially, it's like, am I going to wear pink into the office? Probably not. I don't want to be looked at as like a young child, a girl. You have to be taken seriously and get your credibility that way. But and then also as a woman, you're off. Usually when I'm on a meeting, I'm the only woman on the call. Like, forget being the only Black person. We expect that. You're already used to that. But being the only woman and you have like 5 old white men and you're just like, this sucks. It just sucks. But when I was interviewing at places, I took note of who was interviewing me. Most of the places I interviewed with, I was only being interviewed by white men. And so then I'm already less interested. At the districts, I had a white man, I had a woman, I had a Latino man, I had an Indian man. I'm like, well, here we go. At least we have something. And now that I've worked with other consultants and I'm on those calls, they're always less diverse than our teams. So yeah, or I've gone to workshops. They're all over. But a lot of the California, they're just older white men. That's it. And when I go to these conferences and workshops, older white men. Like, I think in school you're so jaded because it's so much is happening, right, to improve it. So then you're kind of in a bubble. So then you go and it's like not much has actually changed. but even like I went to a happy hour last night and it was just there's no Black people there, of course. So, and it's interesting when you have someone who's a minority or who is from your same background, it makes a huge difference. I went to this one workshop. I was talking to this Black man and this Latino man the whole time. They were like, because you just automatically have that, there's a certain foundation you go from. Whereas you're trying to make conversation with some of these other people and it's just not hitting. You can't be as much yourself. That's part of it too, right? You're going to make different comments to someone who's brown than like the nice white girl. Like, you're sweet, but like, what are we about to talk about?
So my whole view was going back to that idea of knowing what I want, I wanted places that wanted me to be there. It's kind of like a relationship. If you're always the person pursuing somebody, even if y'all end up being together, it's a one-sided thing, right? But if there's a mutual interest there, it's going to work a lot better. So the question for me was, okay, these are the schools that I want, but how many of those schools also want me there as a faculty? And so, when a few programs reached out, I traveled, I gave a talk. And from there, I recognized that, UF felt like a very good fit, University of Florida. And when I dug further and saw their representation in the computer science department, that was really a selling point. I wouldn't say diversity was the initial sort of factor, because I've kind of gotten to this point where I recognize many places I want to go, I may be one of a few, and so if I can find a community outside of work that supports me, then I can work well in that environment. So it wasn't so much of a factor, but when I looked at places like UF that had that diversity, it was something that definitely stood out to me.